The attacking champions find their title defence in the doldrums. 4 years ago, at around the same stage in the World Cup, Sri Lanka had left England's hopes on thin ice. This time around, with a result far more emphatic both by margin and effect, they might have truly sunk the hopes of the holders. Welcome to Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday. We're joined by Shane Bond and a very pleased Farveez Maharoof soon enough on our screens to look back on a resounding victory for Sri Lanka against England in Bengaluru. No prizes, Shane, for guessing where we're going first. Straight to the man on our screens. Farveez, in 2019, Sri Lanka's victory had given the tournament a much-needed sense of jeopardy in what was otherwise a largely forgettable campaign for Sri Lanka. But this time, to do it this way against the team that has been the indomitable force of white ball cricket for a few years, surely counts among Sri Lanka's most special wins in this format of late.
That's what we do. We create more problems to the teams, and it just became open for everybody. And what are we winning by 8 wickets? If you had asked me before the toss, if Sri Lanka, could win in 8 wickets, I would have had my doubts pretty much from the beginning. But all credit goes to Sri Lanka, the way they came up. The must-win game against a quality side. Yes, that quality side was struggling, but still. They had enough good players to turn around the tables, but 100% marks for Sri Lanka, the way they started and the way they ended as well.
Yeah, you referred to the start of the game in our pre-show. I think we ought to throw water over most things I asked both of you in the pre-show because none of that panned out. What did pan out though, you said 27th over finish. We almost got it. 26, it went one better, so congratulations on that as well. But Shane, there'll be a lot more to dissect, but not just the result, but the manner of this capitulation. It's going to resonate for England.
It is. It's a bit of probably an end of an era for England. If you look at their side, there's quite a number of older players in it. I think you'd probably see a few retirements from this format after the World Cup, and it hurts as a player to get knocked out in group stage, especially when you come into tournaments with such high expectations, and it'll certainly sting that England group. But let's be fair. They just haven't been good enough through the tournament. The nature of their losses have been big. And, Sri Lanka's been a team that's been playing some good cricket, especially their batting unit again, fired again today, and their bowling improved. And so, they're doing well. And you look at Sri Lanka's the opposite. They've got a very young team. They're doing well now in this World Cup, and the future looks really bright. So it's exciting times for them.
Yeah, you've set me up for much longer conversations, which we shall carry out soon on the show. But let's take you through what happened in this, which was game 25. Of the 2023 Men's ODI World Cup. England made some changes, went in with the deepest batting lineup possible at a batting-friendly venue of the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru, and they ended up capitulating for 156 inside 34 overs. Ben Stokes with 43 was their highest scorer. It was after a good start, mind you, 39 for no loss in the first 5 before Sri Lanka's bowlers. You see 2 names on the screen, both of them came back into the side. Angelo Matthews for the first time this World Cup, gave them their first strike, took 2 wickets, and Lahiru Kumara, those 3 wickets were those of Buttler, Livingston and Stokes. In the run chase, our experts had called for a sub-27 over finish. Sri Lanka went one better. They did lose 2 wickets early, but then Pathum Nissanka with his 4th half-century in a row this World Cup, and Sadira Samaravikrama with his 3rd 50-plus score of the tournament, making absolutely light water of that chase, and Sri Lanka home with 8 wickets in hand and more than 24 overs to spare. Farveez, I will come to you on the overall result. It's of course a win set up by an immense bowling display, which we've touched up upon, but admirable composure in the chase from Nissanka and Samaravikrama.
Yeah, it's so good to see 2 of the youngsters finishing off the job. Sadira Samaravikrama getting his 3rd half-century and Pathum Nissanka getting his 4th consecutive half-century. It goes to show the youngsters are taking responsibilities and trying to finish off games. When you have an opportunity of knocking off England with both hands high, you will always say yes, why not? So it's good to see, as I said, and it's lovely to see Sadira Samaravikrama especially. I've shared his story in this show itself, how he has come this far to get a position in this team, and the way he has batted right throughout the qualifiers, and before that, when he got the opportunity against the Afghanistan series. It's just wonderful to see, and so I'm so pleased for the young man who have really worked hard in the domestic level and now reaping his rewards in the center stage in the World Cup.
I know you could speak of the lack of scoreboard pressure in a case like this, but you have lost 2 wickets early. You've lost your captain. You don't want to lose more. And just that sense of recalibration, which is something we spoke about when we dissected the England batting, to see the two of them not flustered, not trying to up the tempo, and then eventually, after they had seen out 10 overs, it became just so easy.
Yeah, they're the 2 most consistent players, and sometimes as a young and an experienced player, it's not easy to be consistent. We've seen Sri Lanka pre the World Cup. They've had a couple of tough outings. You know, India beating them by 300 plus runs, getting bowled out for not many in the Asia Cup final. When you've got a young group, some of those harsh lessons are almost what you need before you go into a World Cup. You reflect on them, and they've had a reasonably tough start to the World Cup, but they're obviously learning the lessons. There's some resilience there. As I said, the batting unit's been doing a pretty good job, and now hopefully this will kickstart their campaign for a run at the semi-finals. They've still got India, so they've got to overcome that hurdle coming up, but if they can, then they're going to be there or thereabouts challenging for that 4th spot, so it's an exciting time ahead for them.
Yes, it is going to be an interesting run of fixtures for Sri Lanka, which we will get to a little later on the show. But we now need to address the big elephant, that is England's campaign, which is not officially over yet. As we said earlier today, it is possible, given how the points table is, that 10 points is enough, which would mean England need to win everything that's remaining. You could also qualify with 8 wins, which is what England are now hoping for, but then that needs a net run rate miracle. There is the points table for you. Who would have thought? 26 games in, 25 games in to the World Cup, England find themselves rooted to the bottom, just the 1 win in 5 games, and also only above Netherlands when it comes to the worst net run rate in the competition. And as if the bad news wasn't enough, what are their next 2 games, Shane? India in Lucknow and Australia in Ahmedabad.
Yeah, it's going to take some turnaround. I mean, if they find a way to win those 2 games, you would say they're back in the tournament. But the way India's been playing in particular, it's a tough one, seeing them being able to tip over India. So yeah, you get a sense that they're hanging by a thread. They're not completely out, but they're going to have to pull off some sort of miracle to make it from here.
Yeah, and there's a lot to dissect on broader levels, not just this game. But before we get into that, I just want a quick word from you on the bowling. There's not so much we can ask of when you only have 150 to defend. But what did you see from the bowling effort? Did you see enough of maybe just hunger when you're desperate to keep your title hopes alive?
Look, I never point out at hunger. I think it's, you know, all players here are hungry. Sometimes it's just the fact that you're just not quite good enough. And if you look at England's bowling attack, particularly when they play overseas, their records are, you know, they're not as strong as they are at home. They're not bowling with the same level of control as some of the other teams. I thought Mark Wood was hostile, created problems. You know, there was a little bit of assistance there for Rashid, but again, the Sri Lankans played him relatively comfortably. They had a small opportunity with those 2 wickets. So I think England, look, they tried everything they could, but again, if you look at Sri Lanka's score, 156 in 25 overs, Chinnaswamy again, it was a 300 wicket. Even though there's it's a little bit up and down, something in it, on a small ground, on a wicket, even with something, England needed 300, and they just didn't get anywhere near it.
Yeah, so now let's start looking at what has happened with England. 5 games in, just the 1 win, and all 4 losses have been heavy. Farveez, I guess decision-making and team composition would be some of the first points you look at. By decision-making, a few days back, they chose to bowl first in the heat at Wankhede. This time around, you saw them batting at a usually chasing friendly venue in Chinnaswamy. You look at the teams they've picked. Game number 1 against New Zealand, they went in with all of their all-rounders. By the time they came against South Africa, all 4 of those all-rounders sat on the bench. And now you saw 3 of them coming back halfway into the World Cup with a campaign perhaps behind them. You feel like they still don't know their best 11.
The signs of desperation, isn't it? They're looking for their best team. And this is a team which has dominated the white ball cricket for a while. And all of a sudden, during a World Cup in India, and most of the players in the England team have played so much cricket in India and know the conditions well, and they find themselves back against the walls. This is cricket at its best. And, you know, it's just sad to see a team like India. As I said in the previous show as well, you know, most of us did think that, you know, England will be a clear-cut favourites along with India to be the winners again. But this is something which is hard to digest as far as I'm concerned, because I've been a real big fan of England, the way they played, the basketball, the way they bring the approach in. It just, unbelievably very hard to digest, if I'm being really honest to you.
It's strange. It's strange for me because I look at England after 2015 World Cup, and they put all their resources into one-day cricket, and it resulted in a World Cup final. Now, after that, we've had the England Test team at the same time slump, and all the resources now being thrown at the Test team, and now their white ball game's going backwards, which is, it's interesting that England don't seem to be able to balance off the white ball game and the red ball game. And if you look at a team like New Zealand, made 2 finals, won the Test championship. Australia, when they were successful across the board. India, a Test championship final, they've been good in white ball cricket as well. So you've got to ask the question, there's something just not quite clicking there, why they can't marry it with the talent that they have, because they have a huge amount of talent. Just being able to play the red ball cricket alongside the white ball cricket and be successful. Yeah, it's an interesting question.
And where it starts to become even more curious is that even if you break down white ball formats, T20s, they are the reigning champions. Yep. They bossed their way through most of that World Cup and have bossed T20 cricket in the last few years, which has also been a couple of years in which we've seen that test transformation, England redefining tests. But you saw that this was a cycle where they played very little ODI cricket.
Yep.
I think in the previous World Cup cycle, most of their players who made the 2019 squad had played upwards of 60 games, some of them 70, 75. In this cycle, Jason Roy and Moeen Ali were the only ones who touched 30 games. So just as England were owning T20s and even Test cricket in the last couple of years, did they, and perhaps even the rest of us, find themselves just as caught napping with an assumption that it'll all be fine in 50 overs cricket as well?
Well, it's an interesting, like Jason Roy was left out of the squad with an amazing white ball record, and they left him out. There's players coming back in. Stokes was a point of contention because he came out of retirement. Harry Brook, they wanted him in the team because he's so talented, but this is really in other formats. So it's almost, they got a bit clouded and muddled into what they wanted to do, and it's just a sense that the planning, way out, was to go, look, who do we think our team's going to be? How do we get games under their belt? How does that align with the Test team to make sure that when we get here, we're really clear about what our best 11 is and who are the players likely to support them. It was pretty evident in 2019 they knew exactly what their best 11 was, and they had the bench to support that if they had an injury. This campaign hasn't sort of felt like that for England.
Yeah, in fact, in 2019, England went through that successful World Cup campaign using only 13 players. 2 of them, I think Tom Curran and it was Liam Dawson, didn't even get a single game. That's how sure they were. Farveez, just in terms of the planning, we've seen the coach Matthew Mott come out and say, yeah, I wish things could have been different and we'd played more cricket. But you do get a say originally in terms of planning your fixtures. And it will always baffle, not just with the benefit of hindsight and these results, that in an ODI World Cup year, England went from the period of March to August without playing a single men's ODI.
I mean, for me, without playing any one-day cricket for 6 months leading up to an all-important World Cup coming up, I thought it was a total mismanagement as far as I'm concerned. Shane Bond touched about 2015 World Cup. That was a very good point that he brought up. I said as well before. But after 2015, so many players were left out. White ball specialists were brought in, and a white ball specialist coach in Trevor Bayliss and Paul Fabris was brought in. I mean, Trevor Bayliss is someone that I've closely worked with when he was coaching Sri Lanka as well. So they got all the resources. They made plans, and they made sure the white ball specialists came in. And if you look at leading up to this World Cup, I mean, there was so much attention to be given to the baseball, to the Test cricket. I just feel England came into this World Cup just a bit complacent, a bit overconfident, knowing that they have the players, they have the quality, expecting them to turn up and deliver as an individual. I mean, it doesn't work like that. Bondi and myself, we have played in teams, many teams in the world. It's all about knowing the characteristics and knowing each other very well, especially leading up to a World Cup. So, this is where it baffles me for a team like England, who plans really well, up ahead, at least 6 months or even a year, and not playing one-day cricket for 6 months, and all of a sudden you expect 11 individuals or 15 individuals to come together and turn up. It doesn't work like that. I don't see how it does work. So, that is where England got it wrong. And, as I said before, I'm really sad that England is going out. Most likely, I mean, they haven't yet, but looks like, they will be the way they are playing, and they got, Australia and India coming up, which won't be easy at all. And as Shane said in the previous chat, we could see some big players be retired in this format, which is unfortunate to see.
Yeah, that is the other fact, that you look at this playing 11, and Liam Livingstone at 30 was the youngest member of this playing 11. It's only the third time in men's ODI history that there's been a playing 11 featuring no one under 30. So it also feels like the passing of an era.
And that's everyone was so caught up in the Ashes. I mean, even as a neutral, I was really looking forward. It was a great series. But in the background, I know there's a number of players who are in this England team who were playing in the Ashes. But in the background, they probably needed to be playing in Jason Roy and some other players building, having some cricket, getting some backing their resources, David Willys, giving them competitive ODI cricket. So at least a group of their players are playing together, getting the systems in place that they want to, and then working out who was going to slide back into those teams. So yeah, it's as Matthew said, that might not have been his call as a coach, with so much being put on the line with the Ashes. He might have been just dealt that hand anyway. But England, I'm sure, will go through a review process, reflect on that. But I'm picking the next England white ball team, especially in one-day cricket that rolls out, will probably look very different from the last one at this World Cup if they don't progress.
Sure.
Still a few games. I've asked Shane, need to ask you, Farveez, when you're looking at India and Australia up next, from the position you find yourselves in as England, how do you approach those games? What are the fixes? And I know for a lot of other teams, we might have said, maybe you find yourselves in a position where there's nothing to lose. But when you are the reigning champions, there's always something to lose, isn't there?
Pride at stake. That's how I look at it. India, Australia, Lucknow, Ahmedabad. I think if I'm in the England management, I would just go down and say to the players, just go out there and spoil some parties for the other countries, especially Australia. Well, even Australia just won 3 games out of 5 games, and if England can knock Australia out of that game, Australia's top 4 position also will be questioned. So pride at stake, and so crashing few of the parties. Those are the motivation I could think of coming from England. But as they always say, beware of the wounded soldier. They will come out hard, and you never can predict one of those.
Yeah, the wounded soldier. Before this game, we teed up both the teams as cornered lions. One of them woke up, and how. And just a quick look back again at the points table will show you just how much Sri Lanka have jumped. We've seen the points table from the England perspective. From the Sri Lanka viewpoint, they found themselves closer to the bottom. They've jumped all the way. They are the first now in the chasing back to the top 4. But most significantly, Shane, that net run rate jump. It was in the negative point. It was -1. Yep. They've jumped by about 0.8 just with this one win. Yep. And while they're behind in the chasing pack, you look at the next few fixtures. There is India, but that's sandwiched between games against Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Yeah,
I mean, if you look at that ladder, New Zealand's the team probably Sri Lanka are thinking about. Australia have got a couple of games that you'd expect them to win coming up, which would take them to 10 points with a strong net run rate. New Zealand have to play Australia, South Africa, and they've got to play Sri Lanka as well, and Pakistan. So that's a tough run home. You'd expect if New Zealand lost games, that run rate would dip. So I think if you're a Sri Lankan supporter sitting home, you're cheering for Australia on Saturday, and that would open the gate a little bit for Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
Yeah, we can see one man who is cheering for...
On the flip side, if New Zealand win, then it becomes very difficult for those teams underneath to catch up. Yeah,
Farveez, I know you like staying grounded, and you will celebrate this win tonight and then throw on your humble shoes again. But 3 days to go, Afghanistan up next in Pune. What do you hope to see from Sri Lanka when they land up there?
All we need as Sri Lankans on Saturday night, the All Blacks playing South Africa at the Rugby World Cup. That's where we're going to support Shin. I'm sorry to say, when we see New Zealand in Bangalore, we're winning against England in Bangalore, we will probably be starting as favourites, and hopefully we could upset New Zealand. But it's a bit of a tough one to call. Yes, Afghanistan in Pune. The Pune pitch is very good for batting. Doesn't turn much. We all know Afghanistan when the ball is turning a bit. They are quite handful, but in conditions in Pune, being so good for batting, I think I'll probably give a little chance to Sri Lanka to come through. Not little chance, probably more chance for Sri Lanka. Against India at Mumbai, that's a tricky one. The way Indians are playing, they're probably, I don't have much expectations, if I'm being really honest. But New Zealand at Bangalore, that's a game. I think that will be a virtual pre-quarter final if Sri Lanka can manage to get through Afghanistan. Sri Lanka New Zealand game will be very, very important, and Sri Lanka's last game against Bangladesh up at Delhi. That's another beautiful batting pitch. So, I like to stay grounded, as you said, Yash, but realistically, Sri Lanka still have got the chances. They got the resources, they got the form, they got the confidence. It's just a matter of staying grounded and taking match by match and see how it goes and control what is controllable rather than thinking of other things.
I love that he's set up New Zealand as the big game while you sit in the studio. A quick riposte to that?
No. Look, hopefully, from my point of view, by then New Zealand are already in, and they they don't have to worry about it.
All right, fine. I think there might be a little more exchange here if there is more riding on that game. But
Definitely.
But that does it from us for this one. Sri Lanka have done the job against England, put England's campaign very nearly in the doldrums. England now need nothing less than a miracle. Thank you so much, Shane Farveez, for your company through this day on a resounding victory for Sri Lanka. We're just past halfway through this round-robin stage, and it gives us happiness that it also sees us finish well before 8 p.m. IST.
Yeah, good.
So congratulations, gentlemen. Early finish, like you said. Quick game is a good game.
Quick game is a good game.
I speak on behalf of the entire team here when I say a quick game in the middle of a 45-game round-robin league stage is the best game possible. So well done to Sri Lanka. They've done the job against England. That does it from us. A lot of dissection from this game. England's loss, Sri Lanka's win, what it means, permutations, combinations. The ESPN Cricinfo mobile app should be your destination for the next few hours as you wind down on our coverage for this game. That just about does it from us here. Be sure to join us for our coverage of Pakistan-South Africa on tomorrow afternoon. That's goodbye and good night from us on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday.
Stunning looks, then swift,